All right, so we're live. Hi, everyone. This is Jim, and we are in the community meeting for Kyverno on February 17th. So Shooting's going to help us walk through the agenda, and we'll cover several.
Okay, I hope you're not hearing the dog bark. But hi everyone, this is Shooting, and today I'm gonna quickly go through the agenda, and a few folks will be giving us a demo on the new features we added for in 132, and then we'll be talking about the current work and items on the roadmap, and at the end we'll have the open discussions. I already saw there are a few topics added to the discussion. And if you want to discuss anything, please feel free to add to the list. All right, to start with, I'm gonna hand off to Jim. He will be giving us a demo on the API call using the API call to look up the external data. Let me stop sharing and go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so for this, I was thinking, instead of doing a demo, I'll just quickly go over, the documented example we already have, and we can use more demo time for some of the features that we haven't seen. So as most folks know, what we, in the last like 132 release, one of the new features that we introduced was expanding the data sources to include calls to the API server, right? So just very quickly here, if we go look at the example we have documented, the idea is to follow as much as possible standard, what you can do through kubectl. So much like you can query raw URLs. Similarly, now in Kyverno, you will be able to do a API call, add in a URL path with variables like namespaces based on the request context. And once the results are received, and typically the API calls return either an object or a list of objects, then you can apply JMES path to do transformations or look up specific details in there, right? So here's this example, and so I guess somewhere down below we have a more complete example, which just shows looking up. This is enforce policy. It's looking up various things like services, and it's just checking for the length of how many services were found in the namespace, and based on that it's allowing or denying a particular a new service to be created in this case, right? So it's a very quick example. There's other examples. I believe we added, or if we haven't, certainly we can add more examples to the sample policy. One which comes up often is making sure ingress host name paths or host paths are unique. Another one is to make sure, I think there was another one related to ingress, which was just also validating certain configurations or making sure, in this case, it's like services of type load balancer. So there's several examples like that, which I think we've seen references to. And if there's more that folks know about, certainly happy to add those and extend the samples we have in the policy repo itself. So any questions on that, or thoughts, feedback? I know there's some ongoing discussions of how we further extend this to do more complex operations like looping over arrays, etc. So we will, kind of look for solutions to that, but would love to hear about more samples, more usage, and certainly, if you haven't tried this already, it's fairly, well documented in terms of how to go through. So try out the basic example, and then if there's any policies that you can think of which would, utilize this feature, just reach out on Slack, and we can help figure out how to craft those policies and address the more use cases. Okay, so if there's nothing, no other questions or feedback on that, we'll just continue down the list, and we can, discuss further in Slack.
Great, thanks, Jim. And next we'll have Pooja, and she will give us a demo on the namespace selector feature.
Hey all, this is Pooja. So let's see what is namespace selector. So here I have a, so let's talk about what is namespace selector. So this you can use whenever you want to apply a policy on a resource, and the resource need to be filtered uh, on the base of the namespace label. So we already have a feature by which you can filter the resources based on the resource labels. So now this is like wherever the resource is deployed in which namespace, you can filter it out according to the namespace label. So let's take this example. So this is yeah. So this is the policy which will uh, uh, stop a pod whenever the pod is not with name dash nginx. So the pod must have uh, must end with name dash nginx, and the namespace selector which I have mentioned here is the policy will be applied only to the resources which is under a namespace, and the namespace have uh, a label whose key is managed state and the value is managed. So let's first deploy this. Okay, so first I will apply the policy. Okay, so you can see the policy is deployed. Now, sorry, applied. Now, let's take the example of two namespaces. So, one namespace I'm taking will manage state managed. So, the policy will be applied to all the resources which will be deployed under this namespace. And this is without label. So, I'm not mentioning any label here. So, the policy should not be applied to any of the resources which are deployed under this namespace. So let's apply this file. Here you can see this. Now let's take an example on which the policy will be applied. So here, so this is a basic nginx pod, and as you can see, the namespace under which is going to be I'm going to run is this with label. So with label have the label managed state managed, and here you can see the pod name doesn't end with dash nginx. So this pod should not get created. Yeah. So here you can see, as we have applied the policy, Kyverno stops its creation, denies its creation. So now let's see another example. This is under the namespace with label, and here the pod name is ends with dash nginx, so it should allow. So now if you see kubectl get pods. Uh, so this is under this with label namespace. So as you can see right now, there's no pods running under this namespace. Now I will apply this file. So this is with label and it should pass. So here Kyverno allows its creation. Now I'll check it. So here it allows it. Now this is the example where the namespace is with label. Now here we will take an example where the pod is created under a namespace where the label doesn't match. So ideally it should pass. So here you can see we don't have any label under this namespace, and this is the pod. So let's see this. Yeah, so you can see this is successfully created. So this is the example where I have showed like how the namespace selector you can use to filter out the resources based on the namespace labels. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead.
Not a question, but I changed or I added a comment to the PR and also the issue. We need to extend the any and all operators that for which there's a PR out there currently to work on the match labels within the namespace selector, because this was added after that PR was begun. So so I think that should be extended to the match labels functionality here to give the same type of treatment.
Okay, yeah.
And I CC'd you on that, Pooja, as well.
Oh, okay.
Just so that we, anytime that there's any of these operators that apply, that it's all, we try and standardize on the any and all concept to have the same flexibility that applies to all of them, and not just a chunk here and then nothing over there.
Yeah, got it. So like everything should be in a standard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should, for label selectors though, I think we may want to think through that a little bit more, because there are constructs, there are some set operations, things like that, and it's a standard Kubernetes construct, right? So they do allow, I guess, like there's match labels, there's match expressions. So it may not, I guess for label selectors, let's discuss a little bit more and see how that works, because we're just leveraging standard Kubernetes label selectors and all of the fields that they support. And there could be some, of course, when you're selecting multiple sets of resources through labels, we'd have to think through what that means for if there's overlaps, etc.
Yeah, I don't think this is an overlapping functionality, because both of those concepts are used to identify, which label or which value in a specific key is going to be chosen. But this is an overarching concept that any and all, like any of these labels and all of these labels, similar to what's going on with conditions and everything else. Right. So I think I don't think it's a competing type functionality. It's just it's a larger grouping of them, and then you can still do match labels or match expressions within each block.
Right, but match expressions also allows some logic to that factor, right? So which is what I think we would need to discuss and see whether it makes sense to do any or all on labels, because you can achieve some of that same behavior using match expressions. So that's what I was kind of thinking through, and we can discuss further in comments and see what the examples would look like.
Yeah, and there is another concern from my side, is that we also support the selectors in the exclude block. So we need to make sure that match and exclude are not like matching to an empty set or match to the same set. I mean, it's complicated. And I think with the preconditions, most cases, it should be solved with like the preconditions. So I think we need to think more about the supporting any or all patterns in the selectors. Yeah, but we can follow up continue the discussion on the issue itself. And yep.
Yeah, one other thing, just one comment on this feature, which is interesting, right, to think about. So most of the other elements in the match and exclude, they operate solely on the request and the request object. This is the only element in the match or exclude which checks an external object, right? So, or an external being to the request and to the policy engine. So it's looking up the namespace based on the request namespace itself, right? So there is, and in Kyverno, we are using a cache to cache all the namespaces, but there is that, extra step of looking at the namespace based on the referenced or the object in the request, and then evaluating some condition, in this case, labels on those. So pretty interesting, use case and something different than what we've done in the match and exclude so far.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Pooja.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah.
Right, and then we'll have Venkatesh, who will be demonstrating the CLI test command.
Hello everyone, Venkatesh is here. So let me share my screen. Okay, so able to see my screen.
Yep.
So as we previously discussed in the previous community meeting, so the test command has the ability to test multiple scenarios, the success and the fail for anyone who is writing the cluster policy. So the idea is we can write the test in the YAML format, and the YAML includes the name, description, the path to the policy, the resources which we are going to apply, and the result, what result, expected result for that the test. So the result include policy, the name of the policy, the rule, the resource, and the status, expected status for that. So the way the test command is work, we need the git repo which has, or any local directory which includes the policies as well as the resources and the test files which we are test file for that. And the when we point the directory or the local the git URL to the test command, it will check for the test YAMLs from that repo, and it will scan that test file and check for the policies and the resources defined in that test YAML, and it will report the result. So I will now demonstrate how the test command is work. So this is my repo which has the different all the policies. So the way I design is in the best practices, I made four subfolders are there. In each subfolders, I have created the test YAMLs and the related the policy and the resource.yaml. So if we check the test YAML, so it has name, description, and the policy and the resource on which going to apply, and the result for that test. So here there are two things we will check in this case. It has the when we apply resource, it has the namespace or not, and in the valid namespace we will check it about the default namespace. So it should not take the default namespace. So as we mentioned here, we will first check the namespace, and the another rule is checking the default namespace is not allowed. So, and in the resource file we have kind pod resource pod. So in that we have already a namespace, and the namespace, it has a namespace as a default. Okay, so now I'm directly pointing the test command to this repo. So what it will do, it will check for all the test.yaml files, and it will apply test on that. So the where I am passing the GitHub URL. So as we can see here, the result executing on the test uh, uh, disallow default name, and we are applying one policy on the one resource. So here is the resource name with the policy name and the required namespace. So as I discussed, as I showed in the test is passed because the resource has the namespace, and the test is and our expected test is passed. So here the result also pass. And for the second rule, so we have the resource name as a default, and we expected result is passed, but if we apply the policy on the resource, it will fail. So this result is fail. And this is the another policy which I have in the repo. So 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 if we pass the repo, it will scan all, it will check for all the test YAMLs from that repo, and it will apply the test command in that. So the next I'm going to show we can apply multiple policies on the multiple resources, and it's not like currently now it's take default test test file as test.yaml. But if we want to pass any another file name, so we have one argument or argument for that. Give me a second. So yeah, so we will pass and this minus f and the file name. So what it will do from this repo, it will check for the file name called test multiple policy resources. So first we'll check what the cases is added in this. So here I have implemented the two resources, two policies with the two resources, and it will apply test command on each policy on each resource, and it will generate the result for result which will defined here. Yeah. So because we've passed the file name here, it will check only for the matching file names which are in this repo. So previously in this command we have not passed the file name, so it will search for the test file, test.yaml file. Oh yeah. So any questions I have?
Yeah, no, this looks good. Thanks, Venkatesh. And I have a question for you is that can we automate this in the CI pipeline? Is there a way to track the overall, like if it's pass or fail in this case? Or we'll always have this report card?
Yeah, we always have this report card.
Okay.
Yeah, but it does return, I think one of the things we've talked about, Venkatesh, is it should return like a success or failure, like through 0 or like an error, right, showing how many rules failed. So we can, the goal is to automate every time we make a change in Kyverno, we want to run through the entire samples repo and test every policy, right? So that should be automated. The other way, we want to leverage this is, and it may require some reorganization of the policy repo. And I think this is where we need some feedback. So the idea here is with this command, as you're writing policies, we want to make it very easy to write test cases for those policies that go along with each policy. And then, as folks can submit policies into, for our policy repo, the advantage of doing that is it will help, run more tests. And if you're running any policy in your clusters, this will just become part of the official test suite. So anytime there's changes, we'll make sure that that policy still executes as well, and there's no issues, right? And you could write success as well as failure test cases, giving different resources and different sets of variables, and package them along with your policy itself. So I think we need to, once we kind of finalize some of the details on this test command, we can advertise that whole process a little bit better and document it of how to submit new policies, and how to write tests for policies and execute either on a local directory or on an entire GitHub repo every time there's a new release.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how the policy repo would change. And this has, if we have time to get to the POC that I want to show, that's going to impact that as well. I think it's a good idea. I just think it needs to be well documented and as simple as possible so that users aren't deterred from writing policies. And they go and see, oh, well, I have to write now 4 other files to go along with it and all this and this, and then they're just not going to bother. So, but this would be a good feature to have.
Yeah, and what we want to encourage everyone to do is, of course, even if you don't submit this into the Kyverno policy repo, if you're writing policies, it's a great idea to write test cases for those, right? And at least execute them in your CI/CD pipeline, just like you would with code. So this way, we want to kind of move more towards the whole policy as code model, have test cases, and then once those pass, you can apply those policies into your cluster. And again, the advantage of putting it in the Kyverno repo is, of course, you're sharing with the community, but then also those policies will get executed as part of the official test suites as well. Okay. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Venkatesh. And let me pull up my screen. All right, great demos. And next, I'm gonna quickly go through the current work and the items on the roadmap, and then I'll leave the time for any discussions we want. So we are working on this image variables. Like you already know, we have supported some other built-in variables like service account name and service account namespace. In this case, we want to extract the image registries, the repo name, and the tag, and build them and support them with the built-in variables so that it can be later used to be evaluated in the policy. And yeah, this is the image variables we want to extract from the admission request. And next, we have these any or all patterns supported in the precondition, denying rules, and patterns. This is raised by UChip, and I think it provides a lot more flexibility to users that they can customize their policies to match or to select on like various conditions, right? And thanks to Yash, I think we already have a working PR out there, but I just need to finalize some like items in the issues. I didn't see Yash is on the line, but yeah, we have this contributor. Yash is working on this, and thanks to him. And next, we have the CLI support for the config map lookup, namespace selector, and using the API call to query the external data. Obviously, this is what already supported in Kyverno admission controller, but we also want to make it work with the CLI so that you can test your policy with these variables locally, and hopefully you can also use it in the CI/CD pipelines. So it'll provide you more flexibility to test the policy without the live cluster. And Pooja is working on this. Once the design is ready, we'll send out to the community, and we can get more feedback from the users. All right, and next we have this. We want to extend the kinds in the match and exclude block to match by version and group. So previously, I think we have saw some issue if you have two kinds with the same name but different versions and group, it'll cause some issue when we do the schema validation of a policy. So in this case, if you provide the specific group and version as well as the kind, so that this won't cause any problem. And I think Venkatesh is working on that. All right, and comes to the HA design updates. I already created a few issues that I labeled with HA. So I sent out the design docs in last community meeting. And to start with, we're gonna change the webhook registration process. And today, if you scale Kyverno to more than one instance, you will see the immediate TLS arrow and the lock. So that's obviously what we don't want. So with this webhook registration, we'll make sure that there will be only one instance that register the webhooks and periodically watch and renew the certificate if it's about to expire. And with HA, we'll like change it component by component. But yes, this is one major items on the roadmap. And we plan on like publishing or announcing it in 1.4.0. All right, the last one is the ARM support. I think Raj has already submitted a PR and it's almost ready, just minor changes. I don't know if Raj is on the line, but yeah, this will allow us or allow Kyverno to build for the multi-arch images. Yeah, Raj, I see you are on the line.
Yeah,
Do you
hi.
have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I saw that comment. I'll resolve that soon. So we can have this support. It's a good support. Like a lot of people are moving towards like ARM support, ARM architecture. So
Yeah.
it's a feature for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. All right, this is the current items on the road, the current work and the items on the roadmap. And then we have 20 more minutes. Let's move to the open discussion. And we have 3 topics here. The first one, I'm gonna start first. So I'm proposing to have a way for Kyverno to automate and improve the workflows. Like as of today, we have more and more contributors who are like willing to contribute to the issues or just maybe just to add the labels. And also we have this discussion before in the Slack channel. We want to somehow automate the document update. Like whenever the issue is fixed or the new feature is added, we want to make sure that the document is always updated with the right version, right? So I'm thinking about to add like a few GitHub Actions plugin there that allow us to automatically add labels, assign issues, and hopefully we can automatically create new issues in different repo. So I'm just bring this issue up, and I want to discuss with all the folks in community. Does any one of you have any suggestions, or do you see there is other good way to do it? Please feel free to share it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah, continue.
I was just gonna say I was thinking of doing the exact same thing. Adding a label that just says documentation in the main Kyverno repo, and then it automatically opening an issue, and then we can determine from there. It's just like a checkbox on the list of things that need to get documented, and then that would seem to be a pretty simple way. And then we can figure out from there what actually needs to be documented and then implement that.
Right. Yeah, I already did a bit research on that, and I saw there are a few GitHub Actions that can made automatically create the new issues, but I need to work on the POC for this to see if it's actually works. But yeah, this is the way I can think of so far to do that.
Does this also cover like having a changelog markdown file, which like whenever a issue gets resolved or a PR gets merged, it adds that?
Yeah, I think we can also do that, but this is only for the issue that is merged, or when we generate the release note or things like that. But yeah, we can always improve it.
So Arshu, you were thinking about a change log. Where would that be added? Into the issue itself or somewhere else?
No, so like in general, like I was seeing this like tweet by Thanos. What they're doing is like having a markdown file in the repository, where whenever an like issue gets closed or there's a PR, the changelog gets updated by a GitHub action to reflect that.
I see. So there is, yeah, on the releases, there is a change log, but we don't, yeah, I don't think we've done that on a per issue. And so they actually send out a tweet every time a issue is
No,
closed?
no, no.
Okay.
The tweet was regarding how to do this.
Oh, okay. I see. All
I'll
right.
just check it out and like see if I
Yeah,
find anything.
definitely. If there's some good best practices or other tools out there which we can leverage, would love to see what other projects are doing. Okay.
Okay, we'll get back to you on this.
Yeah, and maybe, so I think if we have some way of like, just either labeling or maybe in the commit or in the PR, if we have that checkbox to say needs So today we say like
Yeah.
I've updated documentation, which all of us leave empty because, when we're trying to submit a PR, we have not updated the documentation. So we could change that to needs requires documentation, and just somehow if that can be leveraged to trigger a separate issue when the PR is merged, that would be awesome.
And maybe like not reflect the PRs which are just minor bug fixes and just
Right.
reflect the one. Yeah.
Yeah, so the author of the PR can check that box only when documentation is required, and that would then trigger this workflow that Shooting is proposing.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of the checkbox, I'd rather recommend we use the labels. Like if we
Okay.
the label to add the labels, then we can use this label to further automate the issue creation.
Right. Yeah, and there are some bots and other things like helpers, right? Which Kubernetes also the Kubernetes repo uses, and then Shooting we briefly discussed PR PROW or PRW, but seems like that comes with a lot of other requirements which we may not be ready for.
Right. Kubernetes uses PR Pro, and then I think they're running it on the existing cluster and configure the webhook actions in GitHub. So they're continue listening on the webhook events of the GitHub so that they can trigger anything they want. But I didn't really find a boat, like a GitHub boat for that. There is one, but only limited features.
Okay.
All right, and I guess that's it for the first topic. And Chip, you have POCs for the website?
Yeah, I need to share. So let me share my screen so that I can show what we're talking about here. Okay, so this is a POC, and this is based on some prior discussion that we've had in the community as a proposed modification to the policies repo, and just of the web page within the documentation itself. So not a modification of the structure of the policies repo itself, but we can sort of see today, this is what it looks like. This is what the policies page looks like. And we're grouping by categories, and these categories are being scraped from an annotation that's in each policy. And while this is fine, it makes it a little difficult to find policies either to be applied into a user's environment or to find them as an instructional aid, which is often the case with users that are not only learning the tool, but they're trying to learn how to better craft their own policies. So there's multi use cases for somebody wanting to find a policy. So this is sort of a POC that we've been working on, and this is not the filtering is not an exact representation of what it could look like, but the idea is that all of these categories, so there's policy type, policy category, version, and tags, labels, all of this would be encoded into the policies themselves. And we already got some existing annotations suggesting to add a couple more things like minimum version, so that users can understand if they're on previous versions of Kyverno, and then we introduce some new functionality, and then we have these policies that need that functionality. Well, they can understand if that's going to work for them or not. And then tags and labels, which could be any arbitrary metadata that we could assign. So for example, trying to find policies which only apply to services. And then you can filter based on these. So, and the filter is an and. So if I wanted to look at validate policies, which are best practices that work on version 2, I now have 3 policies that I can immediately go and find to look at those more. And then once clicking on them, then they'll go over and look at, don't have that part implemented, but it'll basically be this exact same page. So the idea of this is to just apply a more convenient way to find policies that are in use, or policies that they can use and apply right out of the gate. And maybe they want to search for, let's validate and generate policies that are version 1, and then they want something that's stable. So you can see that, you know, I don't have any results that are found for this, but all of these are configurable. So this is the general idea, you know, as a label of convenience, and all of the information that's present would be scraped from annotations. So it makes it easy to extend. And it also has, it also allows us to use the upstream doxy theme without creating our own theme. So we can continue to track the upstream doxy repo and not have, you know, some sort of bespoke theme that we have to maintain specifically for this. And also do other things like we're excluding customized files. And in the case where the tests that were earlier talked about, you could exclude custom files by extension. And also this is completely irrelevant to the structure of the policies repo itself. So whether they're in multi-directories, it doesn't really matter. It would scrape them all and provide the same type of filter approach. So this is the idea, and curious to get feedback whether this is something that that we should try and proceed and build out, or if we should just scrap.
This looks awesome to me, and I think it would be a huge help in terms of finding things, categorizing policies, and also organizing. So definite big yes from me.
Yeah, this looks great, but I just have one question. What's the version here, V1 and V2?
Yeah, so this was, again, this is only a POC. This isn't, and this wasn't, it's, the version is supposed to represent minimum version. So it'll say things like 122 or 12x or 13x or whatever the case is, just some way to understand, like if, for example, we write a policy now that uses namespace selector. Well, a user that's not on at least 132 might pull down that policy and say, this is great, this is what I want to use. Oh, it doesn't work. Why? Well, it's using a version that I can't upgrade to right now. So this is a way we would capture that and provide that as a filter element so that users can know what, they obviously know what version they're running, but they can plug that in and only get a filter of the policies which we know are going to work for them. So it should be minimum version. And then again, it's it was designed to be extendable, but using metadata that's in the policies themselves. So if we wanted to add additional metadata fields and annotations, we can do that. If we want to, and then that would just be implemented in the left sidebar. And obviously, as time goes on and we add new categories or we add new versions, there's no modification to this on the back end that's required. You just simply add in the necessary metadata to the annotation and it gets scraped. So it's pretty easy, pretty low maintenance, and allows a good deal of flexibility.
So the filters are also automatically generated.
The filters, the radio buttons that you see in the filters, which would probably be implemented as checkboxes, this is all data that's scraped from the policy YAMLs, but the categories themselves, these are built into the template for the, in this case, Hugo rendering engine. But all of these are correlated back to a single annotation. So if we decided that in the future we needed to expand this by adding a new annotation, another category would show up down here.
Right, that's cool.
Yeah, some other just thoughts on, which could be interesting is like, even if we combine this with some of what Venkat showed, we could even show which versions the policies have been tested with, things like that, right? So it gives some confidence to users that, okay, these tests pass with like version 1.4 or so on, right?
Right.
Those could be interesting things somehow to capture as well. But yeah, this definitely looks super cool. And in the policy library itself, we can then have instructions like once we're ready on how others and folks in the community can contribute their policies and add test cases, and they will automatically get indexed and show up over here.
Yeah, the idea would be that if we do decide to go forward with this and actually build this out, then having a separate page in the documentation that fully explains the policies, what the fields are for, how to write your own, how to test your own, how to submit a PR for it. I mean, it would be a full set of documentation that enables users to not only use this functionality, which is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, if anybody's ever ordered anything from Amazon, I think you can figure it out. But how you can write your own and generate all of the things that are needed to help other users.
Sorry to interrupt. I have an idea, like as you like Operator Hub. See, like there are a list of operators where you can search, and with some labels you can pick the right operator, right? Whatever you're looking for. Just like that, can we have like a Kyverno hub where you can list all the policies like a hub manner, and just click on that and install, and you just copy the YAML and you just apply on your Kubernetes cluster.
Well, the idea of this functionality is so that you can locate, in the example of Operator Hub, you need to first locate an operator that you want to use. Like there are lots and lots of operators, so you need to find the one that's appropriate, and that's what this does. And then from that point, it works like it does where, let's say, add quota was one that showed up, and you can come here and click the copy button, and it's copied this entire YAML, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So this functionality still remains. Except the sidebar would get cleaned up, but this would just allow you a convenient way to filter and locate those policies.
Yeah. So in Operator Hub also in the left sidebar, they have like list of what kind of operator you want to install. So same we can mention like policy category, a policy type. Just a thought.
Right. No, I think it could be done, right? So we do have in our web page README right now, we have instructions on how you can install a policy category, right? Through Customize and kubectl. So certainly we could even list that as a quick instruction to say, install this policy, install the entire category, and just have a way to copy paste that one command line to apply that policy. So that could be another alternative to, to copying the policy body itself, and changing it is to just run that customize and kubectl command. It's a good idea.
All right, well, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chip. Okay, and let me quickly pull up my screen.
I think this is my topic.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jim asked me like in the channel to have a proposal ready. So I don't have the proposal. I'm here just to collect some thoughts. So let me first explain what I want to do with Kyberno. So like these days, chaos engineering, like there are few tools in the cloud native space which are practicing chaos engineering and give some feature to inject chaos on the other application. So just like that, there's many application like Captain, which recently integrated a kiosk stage in the CI/CD pipeline. So just like that, I'm thinking to have a kiosk stage in the Kyberno CI/CD pipeline. For example, what kind of experiment we want to run for this kiosk. Suppose I am running an application and I will increase the load or memory. I will increase the memory and try to deploy hundreds of application. And those hundreds of application can be a violated application or non-violated application. So between the chaos engineering, like between the chaos injection, if I increase the pod memory, will it detect all the violation, or it will like will pass on the all like it will fail or it will pass. Based on that, we can generate some result, and like ultimately we can make this stage as pass or fail based on that. So that's my thought. I just want to collect some thoughts from your side, what we can do.
So the idea, if I'm understanding, is to line up a series of uh, resources that you would submit to Kyverno and try and either crash it or denial of service it, and then increase the CPU or memory limits to see if that helps or also crashes it. Is that, I wasn't quite clear on what some of the
So
specific tests you were proposing were.
yeah, I'm proposing some specific test. I'm a contributor to Litmus, so Litmus have some test. We call it as experiment. So some CPU hogging, memory hogging, a network chaos. So these are some of the predefined chaos. Okay, so will deploy Kyberno application and try to inject that chaos on that pod, and like, same parallelly we'll try to deploy some application which have some which violates some policy and which doesn't violate some policy. We'll compare at the end, like is it a pass or is it fail during the chaos injection.
Do memory limits have an effect on Kyverno's running though?
Yeah, that is what we want to know. Like this is what chaos engineering. So you will know, like, will it affect the like memory limit to the Kyberno or not?
Yeah, certainly. I think that sounds, as a way of doing scale testing and, I guess chaos
Load testing.
testing. It sounds pretty interesting because right now, yeah, we do some end-to-end tests, but this will certainly help improve the resiliency, and it would be interesting also like to explore like things like fairness, if if different users are doing, and especially since Kyverno sits in the admission control path, what else could go wrong there, right? So I don't know if there's any examples of other chaos testing on other admission controllers, but yeah, would love to explore and see what we can do. And I'm sure we'll find some pretty interesting things right off the bat, but it's all goodness because those are, items we need to fix.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jim. So I'll just create an issue. Like I'll write a proposal first,
Okay.
and by the end of the next week, I'll raise a issue, and we can continue the discussion on that
And
issue.
and is Litmus like a way of adding chaos test cases, or we're
Yes,
not?
yes, definitely. So
Okay.
let me share my screen. Um, uh, can you allow me? Okay. Yeah. So this is a hub, as I already told. Like
Okay.
it's kind of an operator hub. What I want to discuss. So here they'll set a set of experiments. Like generic is for Kubernetes, and
Okay.
like Kafka application. If you search a Kafka application, so there are some of the dedicated experiments like Kafka broker failure,
Okay.
Kafka broker disk failures. Just like that, we can, like, I can
Right.
make some test cases for Kyverno and
Okay.
push it to this hub. It's open source hub. So we can list it here, and just we have to install in the Kyverno CI/CD pipeline.
Okay.
I think this is going to be much more, I wouldn't say applicable, but this is going to be really interesting with HA support, because then
Right.
you'll actually be able to do that. That's a much more interesting chaos test is, if you have an HA cluster and you have the webhook option where it basically denies a request if it can't reach the webhook, then you definitely want to know from your chaos engineering, like, can I kill a pod? And then the webhook dies, like that would be a really handy thing to know.
Yeah.
And because then you would legitimately need to inject those type of tests to know if you're going to a production environment that those types of things can't happen and resources slip through.
Yes, definitely. So I'm thinking of some network chaos also, but it will not affect anything, I guess. It's if it is a
Good.
Nginx application, then it will affect, but in Kyverno, I don't think.
Well, so if Kyverno is not reachable by the API server, and we've seen that with especially with cloud managed Kubernetes control planes like EKS, there have been issues, and we've added some stuff to our troubleshooting. So if Kyverno is not reachable, or if the health checks start failing because of network issues, then all sorts of bad things happen, right? So
Yeah.
certainly there's some interesting things to cover and just improve the overall resiliency and error recovery and handling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this will be cool to see. Yeah, let's discuss in the PR or in the discussion forums.
Yeah. First, I have to design an experiment for Kyverno.
Okay.
Dedicate experiment. Then, like, I have to push to the Litmus. Then, once we have that experiment, we can use.
All right. Sounds good.
Right. Thanks, Raj. I know we are 2 minutes past the meeting, but I saw Jim, you add another topic.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this some more, and I know this came up, and there's a GitHub issue too, so we can also discuss there. But was wondering if others have the same, challenge where if you change a mutate policy, I think what the user was trying to do was apply this policy now to all of their existing resources, right? So Shooting and I were discussing some ideas of how we could potentially leverage the CLI to do this, but interested in hearing thoughts, and if others also, and this is of course with mutate, you want to, but we've also talked about this, I believe, for generate. So the high level, what we were thinking of is if you could run the CLI, use the cluster as a target, produce a set of YAMLs, and then you would apply those YAMLs back to the cluster, is one way of doing it. We've sort of not been, I guess, we've been hesitant to put things like this in Kyverno itself because we, don't want Kyverno to impact existing workloads. So in the admission controls, we don't, we operate on any change requests, but not, or any admission requests, but not existing resources. So trying to see where this might best fit, and instead of automatically doing it, what everyone thinks of, leveraging the CLI to kind of produce a set of patches which can then be applied, and it could be, simplified down to like 1 or 2 commands, right?
Yeah, I think probably the CLI is a good way, but also needs a dry run to be able to look at a cluster and see before you even do that, like what's the diff between my existing resources and this, because that's going to be my biggest concern. And I think that most users would share that, is not manipulating resources that you didn't expect to be manipulated. And being able to prove without a shadow of a doubt, this is the resource that's going to be manipulated. It looks like this now. It's going to look like this later. This is the difference. Do you want to proceed? Yes or no? But there's got to be absolute determinism on that action, so that there's no question about what's going to be mutated and how.
Yeah, maybe like provide. Continue. Sorry.
I think this is sort of related to the issue I opened with the Vault injection stuff.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't fully
Right.
related. It's not impacting, not the intention of modifying existing resources, but when I updated the policy and did an update on deployment, I sort of expected the new policy to be applied, but it didn't reapply the policy.
Right. So today, if you have, if it's a mutate rule, it will only apply to subsequent requests, right? So if something had already previously been applied, yes, it will not reapply.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we can like make the mutate behavior similar to the generate behavior, like we add a label managed by Kyverno or something like that. And if this resource is seen by Kyverno before, and whenever the policy changes, we want to update that managed resource or something like that. I don't know, maybe that's one way of doing it.
So do we want to always standardize that the previously created resources would get affected, or do we want there to be an option like to the user that do you want this change to apply to the previous resources or not? Because like in some cases you might just not want the previous ones
Right.
to.
Yeah, exactly. If you add a new policy and you have running workloads, the question is, do you want to impact those? Because making a change to a deployment could, result, depending on how the update strategy, et cetera, there could be an outage, right? There could be some downtime. So I think having the user control is probably best, which is why the CLI seemed like a safe way to let somebody look at the results and then apply the results when they want. But there could be other strategies as well, which of course we could enable, disable on a policy or on a rule basis.
Yeah, and putting in a policy is fine, but there's got to be more. There has to be more gates and controls other than just a field that's exposed in a policy. Because
Right.
what's going to happen is somebody's going to write a policy, or they're going to adjust an existing one, and it's going to go through and scour and mutate a bunch of other stuff that they had no idea that it was going to do, and they didn't know, either because they're ignorant or because that somebody changed things that they had permission to that they didn't know, and now all hell's going to break loose. So
everything gets restarted, right?
Or things are just down, and then you have to go back and delete things and redeploy them from the source manifest if you even can.
Right.
Because a lot of this is in GitOps, and so it's not like they can, unless they just blow things away and let it recreate it. Like that's a real difficult problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can look at several approaches, but seems like having the CLI option is, would be nice, right? So you can just point a policy to an existing cluster, get, a set of YAMLs to say, okay, these are my changes. You can view them and then decide to apply them at the right time.
Yeah, because at least that way it becomes an imperative decision, right? As opposed to a declarative one that Kyverno is taking based on a policy. You have to imperatively tell it to go and do this again, and then that way the onus is on the human operator. Or if they wanted to automate it, that's fine. But at least you have to say, yes, I want to do this.
Right. Yeah, and it would be fairly straightforward to automate as part of, if you're using GitOps, right? You could make this a Git action or something, right, which triggers when the policy changes, if you're, inclined to automating that. Okay. All right. No, so that's good feedback. Let's, we'll kind of plan out, or at least prototype with the CLI and other things, what's possible. And I think this would be a good one to solve in an upcoming release.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you in the next community meeting. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Great stuff. Bye.